Hello, today I'm starting a new series on Jupiter through the houses. So I'm going to go through Jupiter's, because obviously it's the most benevolent of all planets. So I'm going to go through all the indications just so that we can learn a little bit more about it. And then we go through for the different ascendants. And so Jupiter is obviously Jiva Karaka, the very first thing, and that is the planet of vitality and life, basically. So it's the most benefic of all planets, and the ruler of the natural ninth and 12th house of the zodiac. So Sagittarius and Pisces are ruled by Jupiter. They're completely different there in their feeling. Jupiter in the ninth house will be more for pilgrimage, education, higher education, doctorates, master's degrees, justice, law, culture. It's a trinal house, and it's all those kind of Sagittarius, much more focused, much more preaching, religious, knowledgeable, and high wisdom. In Pisces, it's much more optimistic, much more letting go, much more to do with the vision of the bigger picture, making things very spiritual, and travel. Both of them actually has of travel, both ninth and 12th house. Ninth house is obviously more like pilgrimage, where you go and come back. So you might go either for religious reasons or for education when it's activated, and you will return home. And so let's have a look at the kind of things to do with that. It's obviously a planet of morals, courtesy, and devotion. And it's open-minded, spiritual. And Jupiter is also the significator of natural houses, second house, fifth, ninth and 11th house of the zodiac. So by that I mean that it rules house of family, wealth, values, opportunities, children, obviously, with fifth house and everything, luck, happiness, growth, education, travel, and knowledge. It's the significator of teachers and role models that we attract. People who guide us through life and help us to actually put us on our path, our dharma, and give us knowledge and higher knowledge. It's also the significator of children, which is our most creative part of a human being, and is obviously creations and being creative, and all of that is very massive part of human life, really. It's also like when we got a really good fifth house, all things to do with the fifth house are really magical to us. It's so creative, and it's so willing to be self-sacrificing and devotional towards our child. It's very romantic. It's really rules like the physical heart, like Leo, that kind of thing. So it's just pretty outstanding, really. And they are like our biggest blessings of life, and our commitments to them is highly vibrational in the biggest scheme of things. So the energy we put into them help us increase the strength of our fifth house. It's also the significator of husband material. So a woman can be, or a man can, attraction will be like Mars. Obviously Venus for heterosexuals, the more gay couples Mars is still the attraction. But Mars obviously what we'll be attracted to, but Jupiter will be the husband material. So it's very different when a woman chooses to set up home with somebody than somebody who is just like looking good, just like thinking, are they going to be reliable when I have be set up home and have children. So Jupiter will, a really good Jupiter in somebody's female's chart will indicate that they want to have a partner for life, so they can bring and support their child, be very committed to the family. Jupiter rules the northeast of properties, generally speaking, in Vastu, and it's the condition of the chart. It shows the optimism and happiness of the person. So whether or not somebody can look at their situation like glass half full or glass half empty, and that's how their approach to life is really. So, but the good thing is, obviously, even if you have got a difficult Jupiter in your chart, with transits, we always get, even if it's not a good planet for you, I think it's much more blissful when it's in transit. And also with different dashas, it kind of really helps to activate that that Jupiter for the better. Excuse me, they're just checking my internet. So obviously the planet of opportunities, wherever it goes in the chart, you have that premise there of opportunities and situations occurring that the Jupiter will help you achieve, so you can tap into that. Jupiter is friendly with the Sun, Moon, Mars and Ketu. It's enemies with Mercury and Venus, and neutral towards Saturn. It spends roughly about a year in any sign, but it does retrograde back too during that time. But generally speaking, it takes 12 years to go around your chart, so 12-year cycle. So when you have a Jupiter return, that is 12 years have gone by. And it's a sign that allows you to explore the indications of the house and gives you opportunities, with its transits. It's exalted in Cancer at 5 degrees, the home of family, early education, nurture and stability, and love of homeland. It's debilitated at 5 degrees of Capricorn, which is sign of strive, climbing the ladder, ambition, government structure, and wanting more and more. And Motrikona is Sagittarius, 0 to 10 degrees in Mula Nakshatra, where you get to the bottom of things, build yourself a really firm foundation, and then build on that. That's what really Jupiter is best at, really. Just like, it's not a credit card, it is to do with wealth, but it's not a credit card type of wealth. It's not like Rahu. It's a type of money that gives you pleasure. So it's not necessarily always like extravagant in that sense. It's very much like build really good foundations and then have the focus, and having focus for that because of Sagittarius. Jupiter is a planet that gives you the big picture, philosophy, travel, culture and luck, happiness and wisdom, religion and spiritualities and other realms, charity. And because it's exalted in the fourth house of the natural zodiac, charity begins at home and a homeland first, and that will make you really happy. And women, especially mothers who are mothering a child, nursing a child. In Sagittarius, as I said, is focused and righteous, preaching and committed to goal-oriented and religious. In Pisces, it's open-minded, big-hearted, creative, more forgiving, bigger picture, and more spiritual rather than religious. Okay, so wherever it's kind of wherever it sits in your chart, it kind of protects that house and protects 7 houses from it by aspect, but it's got special aspects, 5th and 9th house, so a trinal one as well. So 5th house is from it. You also include the house that's sitting in. So if it's in your 1st house, aspects the 5th, 7th and 9th house. Gets directional strength in the 1st house. It's obviously in the, you can imagine it's high consciousness and high awareness spirituality, happy-go-lucky, that kind of thing. It's amazing. It's also, when it's in good condition, it can be really open-minded and tolerant, forward-looking, forward-thinking, positive and optimistic. Makes a fantastic advisor. All of these things that I'm saying, if it's in good condition, helps to move you forward. It kind of rules bankers, financiers, economists, judges, lawyers, generals. What else can I say about it? Spiritual advisors, professors, teachers, those kind of jobs, and justice. And it's also obviously rules justice, law, morals, ethics, universal law, social justice, and also it can be very idealistic and moralistic as well, because it is, you'll find that no planet is 100% brilliant, really, so there's always things going on. It is planet of joy and expansion, so the transit of that can have similar effects. Expansion, particularly if it's in the first house or aspect in the first house, but definitely, it's a first house. So respect and tolerance, affluence is all the other things that you can say about it. It rules fat, liver, high cholesterol, and edema when you actually get water retention. It rules Thursdays, color yellow or mustard, and it also rules yellowy kind of diamonds and citron gems as well. Obviously it rules Thursdays. It's debilitated, we said, in Capricorn at 5 degrees, but it's also it's not happy in Mercury signs. Mercury and Jupiter together, because they're both planets of teaching, learning, I should say, really, because obviously Jupiter is planet of very much to do with learning and publishing, because of the 9th house. Mercury is very much like information. Mercury can be gossipy, and fast information. But whereas like Jupiter is more like wisdom and high knowledge, that kind of thing. So this is the reason why it feels a little bit nervous in those sort of, it can be a little bit like, because obviously it expands everything, and Mercury can be very sort of multi-talented. It can like give you too much of everything, so it can be a little bit exhausting. So that's why it creates problems when it's in Mercury and nakshatras, Mercury signs, being aspected with Mercury or conjunct with Mercury, because it's just like so much information, whereas like the focus goes out of Jupiter and becomes too much into everything. And obviously because it's a planet of judgment as well, so it can be a bit judgmental about those things. So I find that, like if you it almost creates problems with learning, actually. So like for example, Jupiter in Purva Bhadrapada can be like it finds it really difficult sometimes learning, but but it could be that it's much more of like a visual learner rather than theoretical, because it kind of overdoes things, and the person could be like constantly wanting to learn, and particularly in certain nakshatras and things like that, it can really give you that like, oh, I want to learn so much, but you don't really absorb the information. It's just about going through it, but not necessarily absorbing the information or application of the information. Obviously not friendly with Libra, because they're both planets benefics, but Jupiter is much more like discerning. It's kind of what it is actually. Jupiter is much more it's a little bit judgmental, whereas Venus is not judgmental. It's a teacher to everybody. It's not going to judge you in a sense that you think, oh, you come from a poor background, you come from, that kind of, your family's got money or anything like that, or maybe your family's religious or atheist. Whereas Jupiter can be a little bit more choosy about who they actually spend their time with. So you can definitely see that. Jupiter and Venus are quite an interesting one as well. So Jupiter, Venus, or Jupiter in Venus houses, it can give dissatisfaction as well, because there's always like, oh, I could, particularly in love, because Venus is planet of love. So with Venus, it can just get like, oh, it can be like, the person could be a really, really nice guy or nice lady, and they're just like, oh no, but they just did that wrong. They could be a little bit like that too. So yeah, it's interesting. So we need to like rein it in a sense. If Jupiter is in the fourth house as well, so it gives you luxurious homes and luxurious cars and things like that, because wherever it is, it's bigger than normal. That's definitely the focus. So these are the things to do with Jupiter. As I said, it's got directional strength in the first house, so it gives the person much more focus, a jovial personality, and fun to be with. I have an uncle of mine. I don't know his chart, but I can bet you bottom dollar that he has got Jupiter in the first house, because he's always struggled with his weight, and he is quite expansive. Midriff region, and he's just very fun to be with. He's just got that lovely, I wouldn't say, because sense of humor is much more to do with Mercury, but it's just the happiness, sharing, and whenever we used to go out, as a family and everything, we would stop more often than normal to eat or drink something, and he wants everybody to have fun. So that is very much Jupiter. And I think I did say, but it does rule, Jupiter rules Thursdays. So Jupiter, obviously, just wanted to say that we all get to have a go at Jupiter in the first house at some point, hopefully, if the dashas line up, Mahadasha's planetary periods occur. And definitely in transits too. So there's this. So, but also have a look at other Vargas or divisional charts. In Vedic astrology, there are plenty of them. And have a look and see what condition your Jupiter is in different Vargas. And obviously, if Jupiter, you're going through a Jupiter dasha or subdasha, but particularly if you're going to the main Mahadasha of Jupiter, you can have a look and see in different Vargas if it is in the ascendant of any of those, because they also get activated with that too. It rules 3 nakshatras, Purnavasu, which is Jupiter nakshatras are always between two signs. So it's between Gemini and the first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. So last 10 degrees of Gemini, 20 to 30 degrees, and first 3 degrees 20 of Cancer. And then also the last 10 degrees of Libra, and the first 3 degrees 20 of Scorpio. So that's Libra and Scorpio. And then also rules last 10 degrees, and that nakshatra in between Libra and Scorpio is called Vishaka. And then we have also Purva Bhadrapada, which is the last 10 degrees, so 20 degrees to 30 degrees of Aquarius, and first 3 degrees 20 of Pisces. So these are the 3 nakshatras. So with the dasha, those 3 nakshatras will get activated. And so what else do I want to say? Yeah, so just remember that, so we all get a little bit of a go at, during those dashas. And also, just wanted to also say that everything that I'm saying is for a Jupiter that has got, I'm not considering any kind of conjunctions or aspects, just purely the house placements. So Jupiter in the 6th house, sound should be a bit better now. 6th house is a Dushtana house, the same as 6, 8, 12. They can give you some problems, and it does. 6th house also can spoil good yogas of success and everything, but it does get better with time because it's also an Upachaya house. So wisdom and just navigating through those obstacles of life, we can actually learn from experience, and things actually iron out eventually anyway. And this is obviously, at the end of the day, this is planet of opportunity and optimism, and glass is half full. So they can, that naivety, because it's a difficult house, of a soft planet in there can actually create obstacles. But, hang in there because it's not all bad. So sixth house is obviously a house of difficulties, obstacles, health issues, debt, discord, divorce, fights, service, work, daily routine, exercise, health, healing, legal stuff, and also aunts and uncles and other things. When we obviously with time things get better, and this is also a house of pets too. So, but generally speaking, these people can actually have either loads of enemies or no enemies because of the wisdom. It could also be that they got lots of aunts and uncles. It could also be Jupiter rules liver and fat. So through eating sugary food, they can actually get that insulin resistance and then have problems, health issues. Because they're so optimistic, and everything expands everything. So, and it's this house of digestion. And so it can just be a little bit like not having very good boundaries in place with eating. Just because it's a naughty planet, isn't it? And overspending. So they could just go, optimistically think that they're going to earn more money at the end of the month. They go and spend money and they get themselves into debt. However, it's also a house of work, service, and so it could be that they do they are social workers, they're in litigation, they work as a healer, they give, depending on what signs it rules for you, what sort of planet it is for you. It could also be a house of teaching, teaching and being like a lawyer, that kind of thing too. So it is a bit difficult, but it's just it's one of those things that it does get better with time. I think Upachaya houses they teach us a lot about life anyway. So from there, obviously Jupiter is aspect in the 12th house, so it's house of hospitalization, losses, expenses, faraway lands and things like that. So going abroad can cause issues with expenses and debts and things like that. Not looking after your health can create losses and expenses, obviously, and you could actually get hospitalized, that kind of thing. If you can't pay your debt, you could end up, all bad checks and things, you could end up in prison. But it is also a planet of wisdom, so you get yourself into trouble, but you can also get yourself out of trouble eventually. It is also from there, it's aspect in 5th house as a way by aspect, so that will be like 10th house. So it's 6th house is an altar house, so it actually activates all the houses to do with money too. So you work and pay your service, that kind of thing, and that will, your hard work will get recognized and it establishes a career for you, activates your 2nd house. But also because he also rules this, aspects of 2nd house, you could either be really good at saving or really bad at saving and create losses and expenses and not being able to save money as such. That kind of thing can be the thing. But obviously it all depends on what other houses Jupiter rules for you. So let's have a look at the ascendants and see how they are for you. For Aries ascendant, this is the 9th and 12th house ruler being in the 6th house, so being Virgo. Not in good condition because it's not friendly to Mercury who rules Virgo, but nonetheless from there is aspect in 12th house, so it's kind of protecting your house expenses and hospitalization and all of that. So that eventually you will be able to look after the 12th house stuff. It could also be that your work, because it's aspect in Capricorn, through work, you work abroad, that kind of thing. And also, obviously, it's aspect in your 2nd house, which is Taurus. But that this kind of thing, that once you get yourself into a situation where you are kind of looking after your, because this is also 9th house ruler, is 9th house ruler is aspect in the 10th house. So this is good for in terms of success anyway. And also, because it's also the ninth house ruler aspect in the second house, it creates a done yoga. So after going through, inevitably we go through the difficult parts of this, where you go through some expenses to do with your job. Maybe you have to have travel, you study abroad, kind of thing like that. Afterwards, that creates some kind of debt for you. And then things will be absolutely fine. So you settle into the routine of work, 6th house stuff, and that way it protects your 12th house. A problem with network here, but I'm going to try anyway. So for Taurus Ascendant, 8th and 11th house ruler, when he goes in the 6th house, so what happens is Jupiter will be in Libra, which is not a good placement for Libra, and this is not really a good planet for you. But what's the difference is that it's 8th house ruler in the 6th house, so it is actually creates a Viparit Raj Yoga, in the sense that through difficulties, obstacles, debts and whatever, you actually get success and gains. So it does get better. And also Jupiter will be rules 11th house, which is also house of it's an Upachaya house too. So this is actually, with time, it does get better for sure. But it does create, it makes you go through some issues, some losses, some sudden you have some gains, and you could suddenly lose it, and you go through some difficulties. The experience will be absolutely amazing for you in the long run. So you learn to respect money and your gains and look after them better. No, you don't really go overspending. And also your 11th house, it's just, it does get better, it's an Upachaya house. For Gemini Ascendant, your 6th house is Scorpio, and Jupiter rules 7th and also 10th house for you. So it's house of career and relationships and partnerships, goes into the 6th house. So there could be some conflict with, or divorce, 7th house ruler in the 6th house, or litigation issues or difficulties and discord with your business partnerships too. And there could be that the job that you do is actually service job, and to do with to do with 6th house. So 6th house could be like house of looking after pets, social service, litigation. You could be a lawyer. You could be a divorce lawyer actually, or a criminal one, because what happens is Scorpio is 8th house of natural zodiac. So that kind of thing you could be doing. You could also be do criminal work, but also because 8th house, natural 8th house zodiac is also research by spine as well. So you could actually get evidence for courts and things like that. But anyway, it could also be a medic too, because Pisces, your 10th house, is also house of this is house of medicine, doctors, things like that. And actually, don't forget that actually from where Jupiter is sitting in your 6th house, it'll be an aspect in your 10th house. So it's going to really protect that house. So although there'll be some level of difficulties, it's not such a bad position. It does literally help your and helps your work, protects that sign because it rules it. So it's pretty good. Gives you much, respect at work, that sort of thing. For for Cancer Ascendant, you're having Jupiter in your 6th house will be Jupiter in own sign, Sagittarius. So Jupiter owns 9th and 6th house, and will be sitting in 6th house, so protects all of that lovely 6th house stuff. So it could definitely be a teacher there, if it's just because of the kind of aspects and everything. But certainly will be somebody who will be really good at dealing with, focusing on the debt and getting rid of it, focusing on the issues of obstacles, and will be, because nature of Sagittarius, focus, go for it, that kind of thing. And they're not scared to speak the truth. If they get into some kind of you don't want to get into an argument with Jupiter in Sagittarius. You'll never win. So they'd be amazing if this is obviously it's aspect in your 10th house. These guys, if they are dealing in litigation, you will not stand a chance. They will literally they can wipe the floor with anyone. And then for Leo Ascendant, 6th house is Jupiter, which is debilitated in Capricorn. So not a great position, and obviously for them it rules 5th and 8th house. But what it means also that they could be a teacher, because Sagittarius is their 5th house, and it's kind of educational house anyway. And 6th house Capricorn, although they're debilitated there, this could be like a structured job, working for the government, that kind of thing. So they could definitely be teachers, looking after governmental job, that kind of thing. It'd be service oriented, social services. They're going to shine at work because just the nature of the sign is upward looking. But they might not really necessarily enjoy it so much because of it's quite, it's one of those signs that is quite career minded, and Jupiter's planet of wisdom, so it's all that structure can be quite limiting, but nonetheless though they'll be highly respected, and they from their aspect in their 10th house, so it's going to really help. But yeah, it's going to be difficult in the sense that is they actually their education, because 5th house could give them some debts too, and there could be some breaks in their education, breaks in their work too, because of Jupiter ruling the 8th house. But it does get better with time, just the nature of that house. So for Virgo Ascendant, 6th house will be Jupiter in Aquarius. So Jupiter rules for you 4th and 7th house. So you can see that there could be mother's health could be an issue that creates expenses through that, or their car, they could have like a car accident or something, so you got to look after your car. You got to make sure that it has regular service, or that kind of stuff. This is a situation when you see these things in your chart, you don't want to be feeding into it. House repairs and things, make sure you do them, and so that you don't get big expensive bill. Do things as they happen rather than leaving them. Also rules 7th house. So this 7th house could be that there could be a divorce with the first marriage, or if there is not a divorce, there could be discord. So they could be argumentative with the spouse. But it does get better with time if you hang in there, and there's true love in there. For Libra Ascendant, this is 3rd and 6th house ruler in the 6th house. So Jupiter will be in own sign. And I can see this being somebody who works for themselves eventually, because 3rd and 6th house, this will be somebody who puts a lot of effort into their job. And so whatever it is, eventually that they could actually either be highly respected in their job, or it could be that they're self-made through all that effort that they put in, and they will enjoy their job because Jupiter will be in own sign, and it's a creative sign as well. Pisces, quite nice sign. It's not as it's very different flavor Jupiter to Jupiter in Sagittarius. Scorpio Ascendant, 2nd and 5th house ruler, when he goes in the 6th house, will be Jupiter in Aries. So this could obviously be somebody who teachers earn their money through teaching students, advisories through their job. They could give legal advice. Jupiter will be in good condition there. And so family discord, that kind of thing, they could look after, because Jupiter also rules the 2nd house. It kind of spoils this any sort of done yogas or anything like that for a bit, but they will kick in later on. But generally speaking, it's in good condition. It could be somebody who's very good at dealing with pets, educating younger children about how to look after their health, because Ashwini, the very beginning of Aries, is very much to do with health and healing. So it could be like somebody who does Ayurveda, or can advise people really well on their health and nutrition. and also exercise and healing, that kind of stuff. Then for Sagittarius Ascendant, Jupiter in the 6th house will be Jupiter in unfriendly sign, will be in Taurus. So it's not a good sign for Jupiter. Jupiter rules 1st and 4th house. When it goes in the 6th house, there could be discord with mom, with family, issues with the car. It could just be that you actually create your own obstacles in a sense as well. But, you know, it's like anything, it does get better with time. But they could actually, you know, be difficult, you know, feeling happy just because, you know, like 4th house is happiness. When, you know, it's in the 6th house, you have to really apply yourself, particularly when the sign is not very supportive of Jupiter. For Capricorn, Jupiter is 3rd and 12th house ruler in the 6th house. Now, this is interesting because it's 12th house ruler in the 6th house. And in the 6th house will be Jupiter in Gemini, aspect in 12th house. So it actually looks after the 12th house, which is wonderful. It's also ruler of 12th house in the 6th house. So this creates one of those Viparit Raj Yogas. So through losses, difficulty, hospitalization, being abroad and things like that, you can be of service, and your work picks up, you know, that kind of thing. You can get the information that you need to deal with any litigations or any problems like that. And I would definitely say you don't want to be lending any money to any friends, colleagues, siblings or anything like that. Likely to lose them and the money too, because of the 3rd house. Just not very good placement really for, you know, because you could create or even borrowing money from friends also. Make sure that you don't do that, just in case you can't pay it back. So Aquarius Ascendant, for you, 6th house will be Jupiter exalted in Cancer. For you, Jupiter also rules 2nd and 11th house. So you could also, because Jupiter rules money houses, when it goes in there, it is difficult, but it does get better with time. But it could be that you lend money or debt collecting, litigations, all that kind of thing brings you money and wealth and friends that you have. They give you some obstacles, but through that you gain through those kind of things. So it's amazing, really. Or could this just be a family, work in a family business to do with banking or something like that. So then for Pisces Ascendant, Jupiter will be 1st and 10th house ruler in the 6th house, will be in good condition because it being Leo. Again, it could be a job that's to do with a governmental job of service and social services, that kind of thing, or even schools. And but it will be in good condition, and Jupiter will be from there, will be aspect in the 10th house, so really protects that. But it will be a very dignified, respectful job in that sense, and you will get over those any obstacles eventually. So that's it. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.